Is that me?
Rise.
What is it that separates the Dark Knight Trilogy from the rest of the superhero genre? Part of it has something to do with the excellent acting performances, meaningful dialogue, and an unusually dark take on the story of a beloved comic book hero. Still, in my mind, it's the compelling interior journey that Bruce Wayne embarks on that makes us revisit these great films again and again over the years. From a deeply traumatized young boy to a fully integrated man, we see what one must pass through in order to achieve such a transformation. Throughout this video, we will explore in depth what steps must be taken for this conversion to take place.
There's a reason why this prison is the worst hell on earth.
The pit, a flawless symbol of despair. One is at first adamant about reaching the top and experiencing the freedom that lies there, until failure after failure cements them at the bottom, where they remain accustomed to the depressing reality that is the pit. This is where we encounter Bruce. Along with the other prisoners, he has just about accepted his fate. Despite his best efforts, he has fallen short. His will, though strong, has gotten him nowhere. At first confident in his strength to make the jump, he quickly realizes that it isn't like anything he's faced up to this point. Something he can't achieve through sheer will and discipline alone, which so far has proven to be enough. He has just about given up, but then he hears the revelatory words that awaken him from his depressed state.
Without the rope, then fear will find you again.
For us to more thoroughly understand Bruce's predicament and its resolution, we must step back and take a closer look at the earlier parts of the hero's life. The trilogy begins with Bruce's symbolic fall from the garden. This allegory quickly becomes reality as not long after he experiences the death of his parents. Faced with his own nakedness and insufficiency that remained hidden under the protection of his parents, young Bruce must somehow process this newfound trauma, which he does so by guilt and shame, as only a child can.
Do you still feel responsible for your parents' death?
My anger outweighs my guilt.
The guilt slowly grows into resentment and the desire for revenge. A stroke of luck prevents Bruce from acting on his vindictiveness and ruining his life. Only after learning about the reality of Gotham's criminal underworld and Rachel's disappointment in him does Bruce finally decide to rise above his self-centered bitterness and attempt to bring justice to the Gotham his parents helped build, but also confront the pain that lies within him. His search leads him halfway across the world, but without proper guidance he becomes increasingly lost, intending to understand the criminal mind only to become one himself. Much-needed guidance comes about through the man of Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul confronts Bruce with his lost state, offering Bruce a path, a way out of his endless cycle of purposefully locking himself up to quench his desire to fight injustice by brawling with imprisoned criminals, arising from the unconscious need to resolve his guilt, which has been suppressed.
Are you so desperate to fight criminals that you lock yourself in to take them on one at a time?
A sort of addiction. This pattern of behavior we find in Bruce is not far removed from that which we experience in our everyday lives. Our addictions are usually nothing more than an avoidance of something deep within us. Addiction constitutes any unwanted behavior that keeps repeating itself. We attempt to resolve this inner pain by trying to defeat our exterior addictions. In a sense, we would rather continue facing our addictions day in and day out than face the greater problems within us.
Whatever your original intentions, you have become truly lost.
When faced with the truth, Bruce at first denies the seriousness of his current state. He cynically dismisses Ra's al Ghul and his offer, but deep down Bruce is aware that something isn't right and has no choice but to humble himself. The thought of discovering what he is truly looking for is simply too intriguing.
What was I looking for?
Only you can know that.
Come.
Bruce's interior journey begins. Ra's al Ghul teaches him how to master his fears and face the truth that lies beneath his uncontrolled anger.
You have learned to bury your guilt with anger. I will teach you to confront it and to face the truth.
This is achieved through discipline and strength of will. Bruce eventually conquers his childhood fear of bats. The guilt and resentment arising from his parents' death seem to have been defeated also, but as we'll see soon enough, that is not entirely the case. Instead, he learns to compensate for his inability to save his parents by fighting crime and serving justice. once again suppressing the pain from his childhood. Similarly, Ra's al Ghul deals with his pain by seeking vengeance under the guise of providing true justice. Bruce's fear of bats served as a sort of defense mechanism to avoid facing up to the darker, more terrifying elements of his unconscious self.
What you really fear is inside yourself.
In psychological terms, it can be interpreted as a screen or cover memory, a consciously acceptable memory unwittingly used to cover or screen out an associated experience which would be painful or unacceptable if called to mind. When viewed through a symbolic or religious lens, the bats depict Bruce's attempt to cover up his nakedness and vulnerability stemming from his symbolic fall from the garden into original sin during childhood. Just as Adam and Eve put on garments of skin to hide their nakedness from God, so does Bruce by putting on his suit and becoming Batman, an escape from having to experience his imperfections and weaknesses which are part of his authentic self. If we observe our own lives, we may notice these same patterns. Many of the skills, behaviors, and accomplishments we have obtained through conquering our fears or by some other manner we use to mask our inadequacies in order to avoid confronting them. This can include small everyday situations like how we communicate with others, or larger pursuits such as our professional choices at times motivated by our inordinate search for success and money to disguise our insufficiencies. Like Bruce, every day we put on our mask, which hides what we truly are. Worth noting is the billionaire playboy persona Bruce consciously acts out to satisfy the public eye and to avoid suspicion. While the Batman mask helps hide his inadequacies from himself, the billionaire playboy role conceals these same deficiencies from the scrutiny of others. Bruce's authentic character almost solely comes to light in his conversations with Alfred, who serves as his voice of conscience, guiding Bruce through the maze of his unconscious and moral self.
For Thomas Wayne, helping others wasn't about proving anything to anyone, including himself.
In a sense, the remainder of the trilogy revolves around Bruce's journey of slowly coming to terms with his true self and letting go of the false identity of Batman. Wayne returns to Gotham, where we see him play out his inner battles by fighting the city's villains and criminals. His ideals are noble, but underneath they are at times motivated by his selfish inclination to hold on to the past in the hope that he may revive it. This can be seen in his relationship with Rachel, but also in his attempt to save the city and salvage his parents' legacy. Both emerge from his unconscious desire to return to the blissful state from his childhood before his parents' death. And he almost achieves this. Ra's al Ghul is defeated, the crime bosses are scared to come out at night, and he has found a man in Harvey Dent who isn't afraid to lock the criminals up. This means soon he can hang up his Batman suit and live happily ever after, with Rachel knowing his city is safe as he has brought true justice to Gotham, in a sense, avenging his parents' death. Unfortunately, the return to paradise isn't so simple. The Joker, personifying chaos, undermines Bruce's attempt to bring order to Gotham and in his own life. It's the story of the Tower of Babel. When we attempt to reach heaven on our terms, we inevitably fail, uncovering to us how little control we have over how the future will unfold. Nonetheless, if we humbly accept these failures of ours to reach paradise, we begin to slowly learn how to alter the way we perceive the troubles and fortunes in our everyday lives. By finding ourselves, we encounter freedom from that which we have no control over, enabling us to trust in the flow of divine providence. Bruce's efforts to manipulate reality to his advantage backfire. The Joker embodies the force that brings the tower tumbling down. He is precisely what he calls himself.
I'm an agent of chaos.
Inverting the established order which has become overreaching and turning everyone's plans or schemes on their head. This is presented on a collective scale, but also more importantly through Bruce's inner struggles. He begins to question whether Batman is truly a force for good or has brought more evil instead. Bruce starts to realize that his actions as Batman weren't entirely altruistic. Nonetheless, his decision to admit defeat and give up his role as Batman isn't the way forward either. Though the identity of Batman serves as Bruce's mask, it is still necessary for his interior transformation. Only by accepting and properly integrating the shadow side of his character can he rediscover his true self. Forsaking the responsibility he has brought upon himself is simply another avoidance. It's a matter of balance, believing in your abilities and enduring till the end, but also remaining humble by knowing your limits. Bruce eventually has no choice but to endure.
What would you have me do?
Endure, Master Wayne. Take it.
He performs acts of self-sacrifice to save the people of Gotham, and in turn, nears a genuine conversion to a real man.
I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
Nevertheless, he isn't quite ready, and neither is Gotham. Bruce and Gordon concoct a lie about Harvey Dent's death. It may seem selfless on Bruce's part for Batman to take the blame, but that which is built on a lie can't and will not survive.
Tell us, Mr. Wayne. What do you fear?
8 years pass, and we find Bruce depressed and longing for death. He struggles to accept the past, especially Rachel's death, living under the illusion that she loved him instead of Harvey. His unconscious dream of bringing about his own paradise has died with Rachel. While the 8 years of peace he has brought Gotham is about to come crumbling down, uncovering his lie. But Bruce's true problems were never to be solved by bringing justice to Gotham or finding love with Rachel. The depressed state he has found himself in and his previously incessant need to save Gotham are in a way two sides of the same coin. Both serve as a mechanism to avoid his true inner pain. He simply can't live a normal life. He is either caught up in the drama of fighting criminals or adopts a defeatist mindset, hoping for things to go bad again, so he can once more enter into the obsessive cycle of proving himself worthy.
That's all part of living, sir. But you're not living. You're just waiting, hoping for things to go bad again.
For better or worse, he returns as Batman. He helps Bane escape by turning the limelight on himself, but denies it when Alfred confronts him about it. Alfred also reveals to him Rachel's true feelings for Bruce, from a letter he burnt to spare Bruce the pain. This destroys his world, and the excuse he used to not move along with his life after Rachel's death as he was convinced she loved him.
Maybe it's time we all stop trying to outsmart the truth and let it have its day.
Alfred and Bruce cut ties. Bruce fights with Bane alone, who cripples him. Bane takes over the city and holds it hostage by turning Wayne Industries' fusion reactor into a decaying neutron bomb, while also revealing to the citizens the lie about Harvey Dent bringing about anarchy for the little time they have left before the bomb goes off.
You don't fear death. You welcome it.
Bane decides to spare Bruce's life and instead takes him to the prison where Bane was born, intending to torture not Bruce's body, but his soul. There, Bruce must watch his city slowly implode as he rots in the seemingly inescapable pit. His only way of making it out, a jump that only a child has made. It's here that Bruce finally makes his long-avoided transformation. Faced with the destruction of all he holds dear, he attempts everything to make the jump and escape the pit, hoping to preserve his old self and the false reality it has constructed. He is at first convinced that he can succeed by sheer will alone, as it has proven to be enough so many times before, despite being warned otherwise.
He says the leap to freedom is not about strength.
For us to grasp this scene entirely, we must accept its deep symbolic undertone. The jump is not so much physical as it is spiritual.
My soul is as ready to escape as my body.
Fear is why you fail.
Bruce learns this the hard way, or maybe the only way, as after falling short one too many times, he loses hope, deeming the jump impossible. His usual methods of dealing with troubles have failed him. He can no longer rely on the strength of his body and will. Rather, he must look deeper within himself to find the answer. It's to this hidden part of Bruce's being, his soul, that the old man takes him.
Survival is the spirit, the soul.
Bruce wakes from a dream of his fall into the well, a continuation of the nightmare he had at the beginning of the first movie, before starting his journey.
Did you have dream? Nightmare?
That dream ended with a swarm of bats consuming him. As mentioned earlier, the bats only served as a cover for a fear Bruce has avoided up to now. Bruce at last relives the dreadful feeling of insufficiency and isolation he had suffered as a child, but also the love from his father as he rescues him. Something Bruce's conscious self had forgotten until now. This awakens him in a significantly more frantic manner than his first nightmare, indicating that his latter dream contained his true fear. Now Bruce is open to hearing the old man's wise words. He guides Bruce in expressing his deepest fear.
I fear dying in here while my city burns.
His city, Gotham, can be construed as a metaphor for his own self. Through attempting to save Gotham, he longed to bring himself salvation and solve his painful past. He, in fact, most fears he will lose himself, but only by letting his false, egoic self die can he truly find himself. All of his infantile attachments to his parents and his past, his defense mechanisms, and illusions of control must be laid to waste. Only then will he find what he has been seeking all along. How can this be done?
Without the rope, then fear will find you again.
A true leap of faith with no safety rope is necessary. Then fear will find him again, or in other words, those fears which have been suppressed can reach the surface as his defenses will have been shattered. Those unresolved fears can then be faced and properly integrated. Bruce accepts his fate. He knows what he must do, and it isn't easy one bit. Luckily, he's not alone and has the support of his fellow prisoners. But in the end, it's him and him alone that must make the leap to freedom. And in that moment, when he has his back pressed against the wall, with no way to escape and no one to help him, with the threat of falling into the abyss below him, all he can do is jump. Death, resurrection, and eventual ascension. That is the essence of Bruce Wayne's journey. And it's what each of us are called to. Not only once in our lives, but every day. Every day there are opportunities for such realities to play out. Fortunately, we aren't alone on this path. We are accompanied by those around us who experience similar struggles. Together with grace from God Himself, we possess all that is necessary to discover what our heart most desires. Each day we must try our best and search for the pearl of great price. And when you believe that you've given it your all and you've just about lost all hope, and you feel as though naked before God and the world, then you just might return to the garden from where you came.